Welcome to the Fat Wallet Show, because stewardship isn't about being broke. On this show, we read the books, break down the ideas, and articulate the best thinking on money, investing, entrepreneurship, productivity, financial strategy, and wealth creation. Every discussion is designed to help you stop guessing, start growing, and build a life of freedom, purpose, and stewardship. And if you're tired of feeling stuck financially, this is exactly where you need to be. Because at Fatter Wallets, we don't just talk about money, we teach you how to master it. Before we jump in, I want to invite you to grab our courses available at fatterwallets.com. Inside, you'll discover courses like how to pay off your mortgage in 3 to 7 years using the Velocity banking strategy. This method shows you step-by-step how to restructure your debt, use cash flow as a weapon, and eliminate loans in record time, all without earning more money and without working extra hours. You can also learn how to turn the stocks you already own into weekly income using covered calls. You'll discover how to rent out your shares, generate consistent premium income, and dramatically increase your ROI with our beginner-friendly options trading course. All of this is 100% free because we believe financial wisdom should empower people, not lock them behind a paywall. So if you're ready to think bigger, live wiser, and grow a fatter wallet God's way, you're in the right place. All right, let's get into today's discussion. We are looking at the book, Dollars and Cents.
A fascinating selection. We are really exploring why so many financial literacy efforts, well, they just fail.
Right.
Because learning how to get a mortgage or, calculate interest, that stuff fades pretty quickly. And it turns out that thinking about money literally messes with our heads.
It really does. This book helps us understand the psychological challenges that are rooted in our basic misunderstanding of what money even is.
That's it.
Okay, let's unpack this. The core question is, why do we make the financial choices we do? Let's start with the fundamental challenge of what money actually is.
Right. So the foundational point we really have to internalize is that money itself has no intrinsic value.
None at all.
It's just a concept, a tool, a symbol.
Yeah.
It only represents the value of other things we can acquire. It's just a messenger of worth.
And that extraction, that's the very first source of trouble, isn't it? When you spend, say, a $50 bill on something kind of frivolous, you're not just losing a piece of paper. You're losing pure, undifferentiated potential.
That's a great way to put it. Undifferentiated potential. Because money is so general and, abstract, we really struggle to grasp its full potential.
And we definitely don't mourn its loss the way we would, a physical thing we owned.
Exactly. And that leads directly to the core error underpinning most financial mistakes, which is the complete and utter disregard for opportunity costs.
Opportunity costs.
We are choosing to focus on the immediate thing, the thing we're buying right now, instead of all the alternatives we're sacrificing.
It's the shaky foundation upon which all these poor financial decisions are built, right? People who struggle financially are often, they're unable or unwilling to think of money as a sequence of future experiences or goods.
Yeah.
They see a choice between $200 now or $0 now. Not $200 now versus, say, a down payment on a house later or a vacation next year.
Because those other options, the ones we're giving up, they're not immediately visible, so we just ignore them. Imagine if every time you bought a new TV, a picture of the amazing vacation you could have taken instead just popped up on the screen.
Right before the payment went through.
Right. That would create such a potent emotional anchor for the opportunity cost. You'd really feel it.
But because money is so abstract, nothing specific comes to mind. When you're thinking about a new car, very few people explicitly list out what they're sacrificing. This car means I can't pay for my kids' first semester of college.
Or I'll be paying this off for 7 extra years. That kind of analysis just requires too much effort, and it forces you to focus on the loss, which is painful.
But that effort is exactly what makes it so important. When we can make that opportunity cost concrete, the implications for our choices just become stark.
And it's not just an individual failure. Governments, big institutions, they make the same mistake. They sacrifice long-term, tangible value for immediate, abstract spending.
The analogy from Dwight Eisenhower's 1953 speech is, it's chilling in how clear it is. He framed opportunity cost not in abstract budget numbers, but in lost social wealth.
Oh, that's right. He said the cost of one modern heavy bomber is the same as 2 power plants serving 60,000 people.
Or 2 fully equipped hospitals. Or 50 miles of concrete pavement.
And that immediately takes the conversation away from some abstract number, $1 billion, and puts it squarely on tangible things. Homes, schools, healthcare that society's giving up.
It's opportunity cost on a massive concrete scale. It forces you to ask, what are we actually buying with this money? And what are we saying no to forever?
And we should be applying that exact same lens to our own personal decisions.
But this is where relativity kicks in and it just makes the opportunity cost mistake even worse. We don't judge cost in absolute terms. We judge it only in relation to what's right in front of us.
The story of George the Gambler is like the classic example of this. It shows how easily our internal sense of value gets manipulated by the context.
So George, in the morning, is being super frugal. He avoids the hotel cafe, walks 10 steps down the hall to save $4 by brewing coffee in his room.
Right. In that context, that $4 feels like a lot of money. It's way too much compared to the $0 cost of the free coffee.
But then, by nightfall, the whole context is shifted. George is at the blackjack table. He's losing $200. He's surrounded by plastic chips and adrenaline.
And in that environment, the relativity of money just inverts. He casually tips a $5 plastic chip for a free drink he got.
And he doesn't even notice the $3.50 ATM fee when he grabs more cash.
Because that $5 tip feels totally inconsequential, right? It's tiny compared to the stacks of chips and the $200 he's already down. The $4 he saved on coffee, which seemed enormous that morning,
Is now just a rounding error. It's statistically irrelevant compared to the thousands of dollars flowing around that casino floor.
And the casino is designed to exploit this. They turn your cash into plastic toys. It removes that ouch of spending real money.
And once we move money into that abstract relative space, we find ourselves agonizing over a $2 purchase at the store, but making snap decisions about a $200 discretionary item.
It's all about percentage difference, not the actual dollar amount.
And if we're this susceptible, you know retailers are going to manipulate it on purpose. We see this relativity being manufactured on every single sale sign.
Oh yeah, the JCPenney disaster is fascinating because it proves customers don't just want a good price, they want the feeling of winning a bargain.
Exactly. So the CEO, Ron Johnson, he tries to simplify everything with fair and square pricing. No more sales, no coupons, just stable low prices.
And customers revolted. People like this Aunt Susan in the story just abandoned the store. And why? Because they were denied the thrill of getting a great bargain. The relative valuation of a sale was gone.
They weren't just buying clothes, they were buying the experience of being a smart shopper. The pleasure was in the perceived discount, not just the item.
So when JCPenney brought the sales back, customers rushed in, even if the absolute price they paid was identical to the old fair and square price.
The relative comparison just mattered more than the absolute cost.
We see it in grocery stores constantly with anchoring and reference pricing. Jeff's favorite cereal, always $3.99, suddenly has a sign claiming the regular price is $6.69.
Which makes the $3.99 sale price look like a monumental steal.
And that trick relies on us making that easy relative comparison between $6.69 and $3.99 instead of stepping back and just asking, hey, is this cereal actually worth $4?
It completely short-circuits rational thought. And as long as we focus on what we're spending right now relative to whatever anchor they give us, we will keep ignoring the opportunity cost, what we're truly giving up.
And this tendency to ignore the abstract nature of money leads us right into the next idea, which is compartmentalization or mental accounting. What's so fascinating here is how we treat the exact same dollar completely differently depending on which mental bucket we decide to put it in.
It's a self-deception mechanism, really.
Right.
We use it to justify decisions that deep down we know are irrational. We create these mental silos for our cash so we can have fun money over here and pretend our serious money over there is completely untouchable.
The case of Jane Martin, the events coordinator, is a perfect illustration of this contradiction. At work, she deals with these complex bureaucratic budgets.
And she hates it.
Hates it. It's stressful, tons of paperwork. She struggles to reconcile the accounts. To her, budgeting at work is this impersonal, difficult chore.
But Jane at home is a budgeting master. She runs this really rigorous system using physical, labeled cash envelopes.
$200 for entertainment, $600 for groceries, and so on. If she and her husband want to go out to dinner, they have to physically open the dining out envelope and see the limit.
And that physical, visible structure works because it creates these tangible barriers between the money buckets.
It forces her to see the limits, and it ensures saving happens. When their vacation envelope is full enough, they take a trip, and it feels so much more rewarding because it was physically earned and constrained.
But when our money is just digital, we cheat. We act like these internal fraudsters, just shifting funds between invisible accounts in our head.
Or using whiteout on our own financial rules.
Exactly. We tell ourselves, oh, well, that expensive dinner wasn't food, that was entertainment. And we just move the expense to whichever bucket has more room in it.
This psychological loophole is clearest in what you could call the fun money trap, where people show this totally irrational preference for lump sums.
Yeah, this one is huge. A financially rational person should always prefer a monthly $1,000 raise over a yearly $12,000 bonus.
Right, because the raise starts compounding immediately and it gets categorized as regular income.
Yet, the huge majority of people prefer the annual bonus. And why? Because that lump sum sits outside their regular structured budget. It's found money. It's a windfall.
And it's instantly mentally allocated to special treats they'd feel guilty about otherwise. A motorcycle, a jet ski, a big shopping spree. The category dictates the behavior.
The government, as you mentioned, kind of facilitates this flaw with tax refunds. Millions of Americans deliberately overpay their taxes
Giving the government an interest-free loan all year.
just to get a big refund check in April. They treat this refund like a yearly bonus, even though it's their own money they could have been using or investing the whole time.
It's the absolute epitome of sacrificing financial rationality for a little psychological comfort. You get the feeling of an unexpected gift, and it lets you splurge without the pain of spending real money.
And nowhere is this mental accounting more obviously weaponized than in places like Las Vegas.
Oh, for sure. The slogan, "What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas," is marketing genius. It's not just about secrecy.
No.
It's about giving people permission to create a completely separate, isolated mental Vegas account. Any winnings, any windfalls are instantly categorized as separate from our money.
Which makes the losses so much less painful. If you lose $100 of your savings, that hurts. But if you're up $500 and then you lose 100 of those winnings,
It stings way less. It was just house money.
the extreme example of that roulette player is just perfect. He started with $5, was up almost $300 million,
Unbelievable.
lost it all on one bad bet, and then told his wife he only lost $5. He had mentally ring-fenced that original $5 stake.
That $5 was his real money, his personal investment. The $300 million was just, fleeting, unreal winnings.
While the rational part of his brain knew the scale of the loss, the psychological part of his brain just reduced the pain by blaming a different, less important account.
Mental accounting is a real double-edged sword. It can be a powerful tool, like Jane Martin with her envelopes. But mostly, it's a flaw that lets us bypass our own rational rules.
The key insight is that money is completely fungible. A dollar is a dollar is a dollar. The moment we assign different values to it based on where it came from, we're just writing ourselves permission slips for irrational spending. And this leads us to one of the most powerful and, I think, overlooked drivers of our financial behavior. We are wired to avoid financial pain, even if avoiding that pain means sacrificing real pleasure or long-term value.
This is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, the pain of paying is the signal that tells us something is wrong. But instead of addressing the flawed choice, we often just try to numb the pain.
And if we can diminish the pain of a purchase, we short-circuit our self-control. The moment of payment is so critical because it brings us face-to-face with that opportunity cost.
So if we can move that moment far away from the moment of enjoyment, we can consume guilt-free.
Jeff's honeymoon in Antigua is the perfect example of this decoupling. He and his wife bought an all-inclusive package, paying a huge lump sum way in advance.
So they write the big check, they feel the pain of that payment once.
But by the time they actually get to Antigua, that pain is a distant memory. It's long gone.
So every drink, every meal, every activity feels entirely free. Because the pain of paying was decoupled from the moment of consumption, they could just maximize their enjoyment without thinking about the cost.
And there was that unexpected bonus, too. The resort still posted prices everywhere.
Right. Seeing the high a la carte prices for a cocktail that they weren't paying made the whole thing feel even better. It reinforced this feeling that they were getting an amazing deal.
Now you compare that to the Smiths, the other couple on a pay-as-you-go vacation. They charged everything to their room, but every little item, a drink, a dessert, forced them to weigh cost versus benefit.
And anticipate the final bill. They felt the pain of paying with every single small item, which led to tension and bickering. They just enjoyed their vacation less.
They were arguably acting more rationally because they were forced to consider the opportunity cost. But that rational effort came at the cost of pure pleasure.
The power of this is just astounding. Even when Jeff and his wife got stuck in Miami on a layover, the pain came right back.
The moment they were outside their prepaid bubble, yeah. They immediately showed financial restraint sharing meals, skipping entertainment because they had to actively pay for each thing. The pain of paying returned, and so did their frugality.
This isn't just a vacation thing. This drove a massive business shift back in the 90s with AOL. They started with metered plans, like 1995 for 20 hours.
And users constantly saw a countdown clock.
That clock, it was a constant, active reminder of the cost, creating anxiety and limiting how much people used it.
It forced you to connect the consumption of data with the pain of that resource dwindling.
So when AOL switched to a flat rate for unlimited access, what happened? Consumption more than doubled overnight.
And the AOL staff had only predicted a small increase. They thought only the heavy users would consume more. They were completely wrong.
The main driver was just eliminating that pain signal, the countdown clock. Without the constant anxiety, people were way more likely to use and enjoy the service.
Decoupling payment from consumption caused usage to skyrocket.
This principle is exactly why credit cards are such a menace to self-control. They maximize this decoupling. Using cash for a $150 dinner makes the impact of that bill painful and salient right now. But a credit card, it delays the payment by weeks, makes it abstract.
It just diminishes the pain and short-circuits our natural financial breaks.
And businesses actively work to maintain this. Subscription models are perfect examples. Once that monthly fee is paid, every use of the service feels free, even if the fee itself is high.
You sign up, you wince one time, and then you spend the next 11 months happily over-consuming.
This avoidance of pain is so strong, it even influences how we remember things, like a vacation. The positive memory can be totally ruined by the end. The airport rush, baggage fees, the hotel bill.
But we can leverage that knowledge. There was a study on colonoscopy patients that found a longer, less painful ending made the whole experience seem less unpleasant, even if the peak pain was the same.
So we can apply this. We can virtually end our vacation the night before we check out, have a final celebratory dinner, seal the memory.
And then you mentally move the packing, the airport hassles, and big hotel bill into the regular life bucket.
Exactly. You protect the good experience and make the pain part of the unpleasant reality of just returning home. It's a memory trick to increase the psychological return on your investment.
So the pain of paying is one irrational mechanism. The next involves how we irrationally determine value in the first place. And we often do this by relying on, well, a random arbitrary starting points that our brains just cling to.
Right, the psychological trap known as anchoring. We trust our own first impressions and the first piece of information we get, which makes us ridiculously susceptible to these arbitrary starting points.
The Tucson real estate agent test is a perfect and kind of terrifying example of this.
And these weren't novices. These were professional, informed real estate agents. They were given a listing price for a home and asked to determine its fair market value.
And even though they consciously said the listing price was irrelevant, just a suggestion from the seller, their final valuation was unconsciously influenced by that anchor price.
A higher initial listing led to a higher professional valuation.
If people whose literal job is objective valuation are swayed by an arbitrary number, the rest of us making quick decisions at a store don't stand a chance.
It's so potent that completely random numbers can act as anchors. I remember the experiments where people had to set prices for things with no market value, like, what was it? The subjective cost of smelling an old shoe.
Exactly. Their price estimates were heavily correlated with a completely random number they had been asked to write down minutes earlier. We are just desperate for an easy reference point, and if a logical one isn't there, our brain latches onto the first number it sees.
This is so critical in modern business. You think about software pricing. You always see the three-tier model. Basic for $10, Pro for $40, and Enterprise for $250 a month.
And the company often expects everyone to choose the Pro tier. They put that expensive Enterprise tier there as an anchor. The $40 plan suddenly looks like a bargain next to the $250 option.
Even if the $10 plan is all you really need.
And that trust in arbitrary starting points leads directly to the endowment effect. We irrationally overvalue what we possess simply because we own it.
Ownership creates psychological attachment, which inflates the perceived value way beyond the objective market price.
The couple, Tom and Rachel Bradley, they experienced this intensely when they were trying to sell their house. They listed it way too high at $1.3 million. Why?
Because they incorporated their personal memories, the emotional effort of renovations, the pride of creation, what they call the IKEA effect, into the home's value.
To them, the house wasn't just wood and drywall. It was the place where their daughter had her first birthday party. It was the back deck they painstakingly renovated.
The fruit of their labor. Those emotions became part of the unconscious valuation, inflating the price beyond what any rational, detached buyer would ever pay.
The house was objectively worth less, but subjectively it was worth more to them. They were trapped inside their own perspective.
But the moment Tom and Rachel switched roles and became buyers, their perspective just instantly flipped.
They became intensely critical. They started describing other sellers as delusional for asking too much for houses with weird layouts.
They immediately recognized the endowment effect in others, but they were completely blind to their own previous overvaluation.
It's a classic human flaw, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're so quick to spot irrationality in other people, but we struggle to see it in ourselves.
This tendency to overvalue what we have is intrinsically linked to loss aversion. The data on this is so clear. Psychologically, losses hurt twice as much as equivalent gains bring us pleasure.
That massive imbalance, the pain of losing $100 versus the pleasure of finding $100, that dictates a huge part of our financial behavior.
In investing, loss aversion drives two key irrational behaviors. First, we sell our winning stocks too quickly.
We want to lock in the gain, right? Get rid of the risk of watching it go down and avoid the pain of that potential loss.
And second, we hold on to our losing stocks for way too long. We refuse to sell them because doing so would force us to realize the definitive, undeniable pain of the loss.
And this behavior has long-term consequences. Loss aversion can push people toward excessively low-return, safe assets like bonds or savings accounts. They are sacrificing years of potential growth.
Just to avoid the short-term misery of market fluctuations, they prefer zero pain now over a much larger payoff later.
It's a crippling loop. It prioritizes emotional protection over financial optimization.
I think the ultimate, most painful expression of loss aversion is the sunk cost fallacy. We find it incredibly difficult to abandon a commitment, a project, an investment, a relationship.
Because we hate to realize the loss of our past investments, the time, the money, the energy.
The famous dollar bill bidding game captures this perfectly. Participants will continue bidding far more than the $100 bill is actually worth. I think one time a €100 bill sold for almost 600 euros.
Just to avoid being the one who walks away with nothing after already bidding 50 or 80, the emotional drive to recover what you've already put in compels you to just throw more and more money at the problem.
We see this everywhere. Businesses funding failed products, students finishing degrees they hate, people sticking with a terrible phone plan because they signed a 2-year contract.
This is why that reframing technique is so powerful for avoiding the sunk cost trap. When a friend was contemplating divorce, they were just agonizing over the 10 years invested in the marriage.
And the advice given was so simple, it just bypassed the sunk cost entirely. He asked, imagine right now you are not married to this person and you knew everything you now know about them. Would you propose to her today?
And the friend immediately said there was zero chance he would propose. That shift focuses the decision entirely on future prospects, future happiness.
Rather than dwelling on the irrecoverable investment of the past. That single question just clarified a difficult, years-long decision. You have to consciously cut the cord to the past investment and focus only on the future payoff. Okay, so if we connect all these concepts, we have to ask, when we spend money, are we buying objective value, or are we really buying the appearance of value, specifically tied to our innate desire for fairness and the perception of effort?
This desire for fairness is so powerful. It often overrides our own self-interest. The objective value of a service, whether it's expert consulting or an unlocked door, should theoretically be detached from the price.
But our subconscious needs the transaction to feel fair, and if it doesn't, we revolt.
The story of James Nolan refusing to pay $10 for an umbrella is a perfect example. It's raining, he needs the umbrella. The price jumps from $5 to $10 because of the weather.
And that opportunistic premium just feels blatantly unfair.
So James chose to get drenched rather than reward what he saw as unfair price gouging. He valued his principles and the need for fairness over his own immediate comfort.
We pass up objectively good deals all the time if they feel morally suspect.
And then later, Jones gets locked out of his house and calls a locksmith. The locksmith shows up, uses some specialized tool, and opens the door in about 2 minutes. The charge is $200.
And James was outraged. He calculated the rate at something like $12,000 an hour.
He was paying for competence, skill, and expertise, knowing exactly what to do, but he judged the price based on the visible effort, the time spent, not the rapid, successful outcome.
He would have felt better if the locksmith had fumbled around, broken the lock, and taken an hour, eventually charging $250 for parts and labor.
Because that visible struggle would have justified the price in his mind. We have this implicit assumption that labor-intensive equals worth more.
This irrational preference for visible effort over efficient outcome is everywhere. Behavioral studies on data recovery services found people were willing to pay significantly more for the exact same data recovery if it took over a week.
Compared to the same recovery taking just a few minutes, we essentially penalize efficiency and reward perceived struggle.
It's that I had to work hard for this justification. It connects back to the endowment effect.
Yeah.
If we see the effort, we feel better about the value, even if the result is worse.
And businesses have successfully adapted to this by using the illusion of transparency. They create this visible scaffolding around their services to show the effort involved, and that validates the price.
Kayak.com is the prime example. When you search for flights, it doesn't just instantly give you the answer.
No, it shows a dynamic, complex, moving bar, scrolling options, changing charts.
It's explicitly demonstrating how hard it's working for you. It suggests that without their sophisticated process, finding that low price would have taken you hours of work.
If Kayak just gave you the price instantly, we might assume the process was simple and low value. But by showing the struggle, they validate their service.
Domino's Pizza Tracker is one of the most brilliant examples of this. It offers zero functional value to the pizza itself, but it gives you constant updates. Order placed, baking, quality check, out for delivery.
That visible process is engaging, it reduces your anxiety, and critically, it creates perceived value. You feel like you're part of the process, you see the effort, and the delivery fee feels justified.
This transparency asymmetry even warps our personal relationships. When couples estimate the housework they do, the total always adds up to well over 100%.
Because each person sees the details of their own struggle, scrubbing the floor, the invisible emotional labor, but their partner's effort is often unseen or minimized.
Right, and that lack of transparency leads to feeling undervalued and creates arguments over fairness. We want our effort acknowledged. We judge our own output by our effort, but we judge others' output by the immediate result.
So the appearance of value tied to fairness and effort is something we're constantly chasing. And it means successful business models don't just solve a problem, they show you how hard they're working to solve it.
We've established that value is subjective, it's relative, it's linked to perceived effort, but it's also massively influenced by what we anticipate. Expectations are incredibly powerful value cues that literally distort our experience.
If we expect something to be high quality, we will value and experience it more positively. The perception becomes the reality.
Take Vinny Del Rey. He consistently pays more for extra-strength Tylenol over the generic acetaminophen.
Rationally, they have the same active ingredients. But because he expects the branded Tylenol to work better, he actually experiences enhanced pain relief. He paid for the expectation, and his brain delivered the result.
He applied the same logic to his car. He paid a premium for his Model S Tesla because he expected it to be the pinnacle of performance.
And that high expectation led him to subjectively experience the power and handling as superior, which just fulfilled his belief.
Branding is the primary mechanism for setting these high expectations. It increases the perception of value and makes things more enjoyable in the brain.
The famous Coke studies demonstrated this perfectly. The same beverage literally tastes better when a brand name is attached.
Right. When participants drank Coke-branded cola, specific regions of the brain associated with emotion and reward showed higher activation compared to the generic.
Branding makes the chemical experience more pleasurable.
And expectations don't just affect the moment of consumption, they extend far before it. The power of anticipation is a huge hidden value driver.
Buying a 1-week vacation brings 5 weeks of pleasure.
4 weeks of daydreaming and planning, and then the actual week of the vacation.
Exactly. And conversely, dread creates negative anticipation. If you're dreading a medical procedure, you suffer the pain of the procedure plus the 2 weeks of dread leading up to it, doubling the misery.
But even when our expectations are high, we still face this huge internal battle against temptation and our inability to delay gratification. This is the challenge of self-control.
The core issue here is something called hyperbolic discounting. We value rewards right now much, much more highly than the same or even greater rewards offered in the future.
The successful consultant Rob Mansfield perfectly embodied this. He knew he should save for retirement, but he just constantly postponed it.
Why? Because the immediate temptation, A new motorcycle, expensive dinners, was always more compelling than the vague, distant reward of retirement.
Future Rob needs the money, but present Rob feels like he can't afford to save because the immediate pleasure always outweighs the abstract future gain.
It's that smaller reward in the present over a larger reward in the future. Willpower is effort, and against constant temptation, especially with credit cards that decouple the pain of paying, it's just not a sustainable strategy.
Yeah, we have to acknowledge our own flaws. Compared to a goldfish who will literally eat until its stomach explodes because it has no self-control, we might feel relatively good about ourselves, but our willpower is fragile.
So we need external psychological tools, or Ulysses contracts, to create barriers against our own future flawed decisions.
A Ulysses contract eliminates free will in the moment of temptation. You tie yourself to the mast, like Odysseus did, so you can't choose poorly later.
The 401k is an excellent example of an effective, though technically irrational, Ulysses contract.
Rationally, you should wait until the end of the month, see what's left over, and then save. But since that usually results in never saving,
Like Rob Mansfield.
we use the irrational strategy, pre-committing to a savings amount at the beginning of the month.
And the 401k works because you only have to overcome temptation once when you sign up, instead of 12 times a year. And the huge adoption of these plans relies on leveraging our own inertia.
Right, automatic enrollment. You have to actively opt out, which leverages our own laziness for our long-term benefit. Default options are incredibly powerful.
Beyond these structural contracts, we can use visibility and emotional triggers to help savings stick. Studies show that simply labeling savings accounts with emotionally salient goals, like your children's names, significantly increases the savings rate.
Because it triggers a powerful lever.
Guilt. And visibility itself is a mechanism for control. In a Kenyan study, participants who got a physical gold coin, a salient, visible reminder of their savings, increased their overall savings, even on non-reminder days.
The physical presence of the valuable object just brought the abstract goal of saving into their daily life, leading to real action.
We have to make our savings as tangible and emotionally compelling as the immediate purchases we make. The battle isn't about knowing math. It's about controlling our present-day self from sabotaging our future self.
So what does this whole catalog of human irrationality mean for us? We've seen how mental accounting, anchoring, loss aversion, all of it all conspires to make us fail, even when we have all the information. How do we fight back?
Well, the first step is to recognize our tendency to just over-rely on money as a decision heuristic. We default to the idea that expensive must mean good because price is the feature that is always easy to see and evaluate.
Dan bought a $2,000 French designer sofa for his office. He rationalized that the high price meant superior quality, even though a $200 option might have been perfectly fine.
He defaulted to price as the quality indicator. Price is often just a lazy proxy for value. And we also chase measurable progress miles, salary figures, because they're easy ways to gauge success.
Even when the pursuit itself reduces our overall happiness, like flying crazy routes, just to get frequent flyer miles.
To counteract this, we have to consciously learn to reframe the cost. Instead of comparing money to things, we must compare things to things directly.
This is most critical in major financial decisions, like a mortgage. You have to stop grappling with interest rates and monthly payments and instead reframe the opportunity cost.
So the decision to get the bigger house costs the same as the smaller house, plus 1 yearly vacation, plus a semester of college for each kid, plus a 10% increase in your retirement contribution.
That reframing instantly makes the opportunity cost concrete. It forces a conscious comparison between two different sets of tangible values, vacation and college, versus more square footage. That's the only way to bypass the abstraction.
We can also manipulate timeframes. If the goal is to encourage long-term saving, framing an income yearly, say $70,000, encourages a long-term savings-oriented view.
Conversely, if you want to shock someone into saving, you frame their spending monthly or yearly. Framing $4 a day for coffee as $1,460 a year. That makes the cumulative cost shocking and encourages restraint.
The ultimate control mechanism, though, is creating decision points or friction to interrupt what you might call financial sleepwalking. We need psychological road signs to snap us out of our habitual automatic spending.
It's the popcorn rule applied to finance. If a huge bag of snacks is split into 4 smaller bags, you pause when you open a new bag. That pause creates a moment of reflection and evaluation, and you end up consuming less.
So we apply this by splitting our weekly money into multiple containers, whether they're physical envelopes or virtual ones. The act of moving money or opening that new container forces a subtle reevaluation.
And if those envelopes are labeled with emotionally significant goals, the friction increases exponentially. It forces you to ask, is this impulse worth jeopardizing my child's college fund?
We've explored the failures of George the Gambler, the constraints of Jane Martin, the pain of the honeymooning Smiths, the blindness of Tom and Rachel Bradley, and the weakness of Rob Mansfield. They all struggled because they were moved along by these irrelevant value cues.
We shouldn't paralyze ourselves by questioning every single financial decision we make. I mean, that would be overwhelming and exhausting. We have to be strategic.
We must pick our spots and question those repeated automatic decisions that cause long-term cumulative harm. The daily lattes, the unused gym memberships, the expensive cable bundle we rarely watch.
We have to occasionally stop, leverage these techniques we've discussed, and just ask if the purchase is truly worth the value and what concrete opportunity we're giving up in its place.
Money is inherently a difficult, abstract concept for the human brain to handle. But by understanding these psychological flaws, anchoring, mental accounting, hyperbolic discounting, we gain the tools to fight back. By consciously using behavioral tricks like Ulysses contracts, reframing costs, and creating friction, we can finally use our own behavioral quirks to achieve long-term financial freedom.
If you enjoyed today's discussion, be sure to subscribe our YouTube channel, social media accounts, and visit fatterwallace.com for more content, free courses, resources, and tools to help you live wisely and build wealth with purpose.